Sunday, there was an opportunity for head coach Bill O'Brien to discuss the aftermath of these deals, which has resulted in intense criticism of the Texans, a team that has no general manager, and it showed. Let's listen to what Bill O'Brien said in response to the criticism that the team has absorbed in the aftermath of those trades that were made on Saturday.
I understand everybody's going to dissect, how we did it and what we received back and what we gave Seattle. We're very confident. We're also confident in the fact that we can't control what the outside world thinks. You said it. That's the nature of our business. It's probably taken me a while to figure that out, but it's the nature of our business. I think the best thing for us to do is go work hard, practice hard, and win.
The specific context to the question was the Seattle trade for Jadeveon Clowney, but you have the 2 first-round picks and the second-round pick that were surrendered guys for Laremy Tunsil and Kenny Stills to the Miami Dolphins. Big picture, the criticism inevitable. Is the criticism fair? Peter.
Well, Mike, if they had gotten a contract extension with Laremy Tunsil, if they had called Tunsil and his agent, and say, hey, look, you got 5 hours to decide. 5 years, $90 million, $50 million guaranteed. If you want to take it, we're going to do this deal. If not, we're not. And then they could have gotten Laremy Tunsil and an extension done for $18 million a year, or maybe 19 if they had to really go that far. But at the end of this year, you know what's going to happen? Laremy Tunsil is going to be able to hold them hostage, because even though he could be extended, he could be franchised into 2021. But I think the biggest problem is, 2020. The biggest problem, Mike, is I don't think the compensation was horrible. I think it was excessive, but I don't think it was horrible. But it wasn't good that they didn't get that extension.
Yeah, I agree with you, and hopefully that's one of those things, or at least for the Houston Texans case, it's one of those things that they get a contract extension done at some point in the first half of this season. You're right, because they're going to look ridiculous if Tunsil walks out the door as a free agent or something like that, and they traded first-round picks. I'll say this much about the whole weekend for the Houston Texans. First off, the trade for the Seattle Seahawks is phenomenal. I mean, we know that. Seattle was a Super Bowl contender, or at least a playoff contender. Now they're a true Super Bowl winning contender, I think, with Jadeveon Clowney. The Houston Texans, okay, I got no issue as much with the Jadeveon Clowney trade, Mike and Peter, but it is the Miami trade where I go, whoa, that's crazy. Laremy Tunsil's a fine player, but he has not proven himself to be anywhere in the top 5 tackles in all of football conversation yet. We know that the Miami Dolphins wanted to get rid of Kenny Stills because of the whole Stephen Ross situation. To me, that's the one that doesn't make sense. They gave up a lot of value and future draft picks, of course, to really frame their team, to get a guy who's a third receiver, maybe a bottom end number 2 in Stills, and then, of course, in Tunsil, who's hasn't lived up to his top 10 billing yet as a draft pick.
And I agree with you.
I'll make one point to you, Chris.
Yeah.
Mike, can I just interrupt? I want to make one point.
Go ahead.
So Kenny Stills, the value in Stills is as much as durability. He's missed 2 games in 6 years. And they've got some guys on their roster in Houston who've missed a lot of time.
Sure, Will Fuller.
And so that was part of his value.
Yeah.
I think he is a valuable piece of this trade.
The question, though, is really, if you'd have done a straight-up deal for Kenny Stills with the Dolphins, what could you have gotten him for? And it's hard to parse it out because so much was included in there. And at one point, we thought Jadeveon Clowney... Right, we thought Jadeveon Clowney was going to be part of that deal with the Miami Dolphins, but he was able to engineer his situation away from Miami and towards Seattle by not signing the franchise tender. He met with the media yesterday, and he was asked the specific question of whether he was influenced by what Le'Veon Bell did last year to hold out all year long and dictate where he was going to play in 2019. How much of that influenced Jadeveon Clowney? Here's his response when he was asked that question by reporters.
I was just trying to really try to take control of what I could control, and as far as where can I play it and how can I be traded as far as that. So I was just taking that into consideration. It was like, if I don't sign a tag, maybe I can decide where I end up going, and I got somewhere I wanted to be.
I mean, it is amazing he was able to pull that off. And I think about the deal that brought Tunsil and Stills to Houston and what Houston gave up. If you throw Clowney into that mix and send him to Miami, you probably are keeping your second-round pick, right? Clowney and 2 1s for Tunsil and Kenny Stills sounds like a pretty good deal, but Clowney wasn't having it. He wasn't going to sign his franchise tender, or at least he said he wasn't going to sign it, and he got to engineer his path to Seattle. Peter, is this the next brick in this wall of players developing power over their situation in the NFL, or is it just an aberration?
No, I think it's good for Jadeveon Clowney. He obviously, once he found out that they were trying to trade him in Houston, I think he said, look, I'm not going to a 1-15 team. I'm not going to the Miami Dolphins. Forget that. I'm not going from a playoff contender to a bad team. And so he basically could put the kibosh on that. But Mike, the bigger question, I think my 2-part question about this, and don't get me wrong, I like this trade for Seattle without any question, especially because they're only paying half his salary.
Right.
I really like this trade. But what is everybody going to say about this trade if after this year, Jadeveon Clowney signs for $23 million a year with the Pickett team, the Detroit Lions, and then he becomes a 1-year rental for the Seahawks? I still think people are going to say, hey, it was a good gamble for them to take. I get it. But this is a 1-year deal. So everybody who's saying, and I also said that John Schneider won the weekend, so I like this. But I'm not sure, first of all, the Seattle Seahawks have some holes on their roster. None bigger, by the way, than at pass rusher. So that was great. They got some holes on their roster. And they got some holes in the defensive secondary. You have no idea how their receiving core is going to be. And they still have an offensive line that has trouble protecting Russell Wilson. So this is not, I disagree with Chris. I don't think this puts them over the top as being a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. You're allowed to disagree with me. I don't see it that way.
I encourage it.
Yeah, well, good. Please do. Gang up on me on a Tuesday morning. That's what I like. The offensive line, I think is where it needs to be. They kind of proved it last year. I don't expect that to be a weakness of this football team anymore.
It's why they ran the ball so much, because it's not a good run and not a good pass blocking line.
Sure. Well, so we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But still, their ability to run the ball, I still think is going to be special. You have Russell Wilson. They have some unproven commodities at quarterback, certainly. But when you start, at wide receiver, secondary, you're right, Peter. It's not like household names, but this is a group of people in Schneider and Carroll who know what they're doing. They know how to evaluate young talent. They've already proven that to where, yeah, they're not household names, but I think it's better than maybe people realize. But when you started getting into Ezekiel Ansah, Jadeveon Clowney, first-round pick L.J. Collier, and then, okay, Jaron Reed, who's going to be suspended for the what is it, the first 6 weeks, Mike? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 4. Yep. I mean, when that group gets back healthy, I think that puts them back in with now Bobby Wagner, okay, and KJ Wright and Michael Kendricks, a linebacker. I go, watch out. That's one of the most versatile, athletic, best front sevens in all of football. And we know the home field advantage Seattle has up there in general anyways. Loud crowd noise. Defensive line can get a jump at the start of the snap better than the offense can. And I think that's the beauty of it. And they're playing to the way they built their first Super Bowl team. I think that's where I look at it. But you're right, it's a 1-year rental. But he's risky. He had microfracture surgery, and you got to wait and see with Jadeveon Clowney. You can't just throw him bucket loads of money at this point yet. He hasn't proved that. But Mike, F up the play extraordinaire. This guy messes up more plays than anybody in football not named Aaron Donald the last few years. Sorry.
I still need to work on the Elias Sports Bureau to get them to recognize the F up the play as an official stat of the National Football League. This is one additional criticism of the Texans.
Yeah.
Because they all they had to say to Clowney was, look, you're going to give up $1 million a week and not sign the tender. We decide where we're going to trade you. This is how it works. You're going to make $16 million this year. Are you really going to give up $1 million a week to just sit there and cross your arms and say, I'm not going to Miami, I want to go to Seattle? So, to the extent that we think that players are seizing control over teams, it may be that players are seizing control over weak teams that are letting them. Because if I'm the Texans GM, well, wait, there isn't one. If I'm anybody in a position of influence with the Texans, I'm saying, call this guy's bluff. He's not going to fail to sign that tender. He's going to show up, and we're going to be able to trade him wherever we want to trade him. And when you consider what they got back for him, if he wants to sit out for 4 or 5 weeks and give up $4 or $5 million, so be it. That's his prerogative.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.